We're going to try this again. Okay, starting live. We should be on.
Mm-hmm. All right. How's everybody feeling? Good. Come on now, y'all can do better than that. How is everybody feeling? There it is. We're getting somewhere, don't worry. But we hope all of you at home are doing as well too. And welcome everybody to our first ever Hot Reads Live podcast. This is our first time attempting this, and so we are going to see how it goes. And then for those of you that don't know, it's me, it's the host, Nick T. But I'm not riding alone because I got my guest host with me. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Justin Anderson, affectionately known as J Boogie. He's going to be helping me out today, and we are going to be talking about something that we geek out about a lot.
I was about to say, when we were coming up with this, like the plan for this episode, we really just kind of like sit here at work whenever we can and talk about this stuff. So it's really just putting a camera on and sitting in front of you all and letting you listen.
It was trying to figure out how we stretch what we talk about already into a full show, but I think we made it work. But no, we're just going to be talking about Marvel, kind of how it started, where we're at now, and just kind of the things we enjoy about it. Nothing too serious. Disclaimer, we are not experts in the field of Marvel. We are literally just two individuals with a lot of time and a lot of love and passion. So, with that being said, I'd say we jump right in. You ready? You guys ready? Mm-hmm. I'm assuming you all are ready. I can't really see it, but I'm assuming you're all ready. So, we're going to kick this off, and our whole talk is going to begin in 1939, which is when a publisher by the name of Mr. Martin Goodman founded what was known then as Timely Comics, who published a comic by the title of Marvel Comics #1. So you can already see the foreshadowing. So then, I believe it was after like World War II, superheroes had kind of lost their oomph, and so Timely became Atlas, and they started focusing more on like your humors, your westerns, horror, science fiction, war, for obvious reasons. And then, you know, that kind of ran for a while, but then early 1960s, when all of that became what we know today as Marvel. And it has become, ever since that point in time, has become a huge stalwart, I guess you could say, when it comes to media, pop culture, all that fun stuff. Actually, there was a book written by Douglas Wolk who titled it All of the Marvels. If you haven't read it, we have it downstairs. Highly recommended. Good read. But according to his book that was published in October of 2021, he says the superhero comic books that Marvel has published since 1961 are the longest continuous self-contained work of fiction ever created, with over 500,000 to date and still growing. So that was October 2021. What are we, January 2023?
That's correct.
So there's no telling how many things have been published within just that short amount of time.
And I mean, this is something that folks have been consistently enjoying across this time period, you know? I can't even imagine what it would have been like to, you know, to experience people like Stan Lee in those comics having the little, I believe they call it, was it Stan's soapbox or something?
Stan's soapbox.
Just get to hear his genuine energy even back then. It would be awesome.
Stan did not hold back at all. And it's actually funny that, like, with all this going on, I'm going to get on Nick's soapbox for a second. I always didn't care for the fact that people never gave comics their props. Like, I've talked to a lot of people, and it's just like, oh, it's a book with pictures, but like, comics are a huge deal. I think we talked about it in the Batman episode that we did. If you haven't seen the Batman episode, McLib TV on YouTube, give it a watch. Pluggy plug. But we talked about Watchmen.
Yes.
And we talked about how Watchmen at the time was won the Hugo Award, but then it was also on Time Magazine's 100 Best English Language Novels from 1923 to present. That was back in 2005.
And I'm pretty sure it was the only graphic novel on the list, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that was the only graphic novel on, that's Time Magazine.
Right.
That's a huge deal. So I just feel like comics need to get their props.
Well, and it's like the idea of elevating it. It really elevated how people looked at it. But truly, like, people have been writing excellent, you know, comics for a really long time, you know. A lot of the current MCU movies, they take a lot of cues from some of those old comics. They try not to take it exactly, because they want to be able to subvert expectations for new viewers too, or I'm sorry, the people who had read the originals.
Yeah.
But it's a cool little blend. They really make it work.
It really is. And talking about that, actually, that blend, I mean, you think about all the people that have contributed to just Marvel as a whole. We're talking Stan Lee, which I think we all know somewhat who Stan Lee is. Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko, Chris Claremont, Jim Lee, Todd McFarlane, Mr. Frank Miller, Rob Liefeld, Joe Simon, Donnie Cates, John Romana Sr. and his son Jr. later got in the business of comics. Like, all these people created these just absolutely amazing stories. Like, I'm thinking about the fact that, like, Donnie Cates' Thor run from 2021,
Right.
where he became the new herald for Galactus.
Mhm.
Like, Thor's already like the god of thunder, and then you throw in Silver Surfer's power on top of that.
And that's like a classic comic books move too there,
It really
right?
is. It really is.
We'll just give this hero this one's powers and watch everyone just get super excited.
Just get super
which
excited.
I would get excited about that.
I was pretty pumped about it because it was weird seeing how, like, because if I'm remembering it all correctly, it's been a minute. Galactus was able to see how he died, and it was Thor.
Okay.
Thor was the one that took him out. So Galactus had the idea of, okay, you're already going to end me, but before you do, you're going to serve me. So you've got the
Interesting.
power of the King of Thunder and the All-Father that he is, and you mix that with Silver Surfer's power, and you just have an absolute just beast
I
of a
feel like
hero.
the power is definitely one of the more interesting parts of some of these Marvel characters. We'll probably get into this when we talk about some of our favorites.
Yeah, we're going to get into power scaling and all that fun stuff. But even if you just talk about, again, like scales, Jim Lee's, and actually it's in the handout you guys have, all of you should have one, and if you don't, it's really cool. But in the handout, there is X-Men #1 from 1991. That was the biggest selling comic, I think, still going. Like, it's still the highest sold comic. It sold 8,186,500 issues.
That's incredible.
Like, that, come on now. Comics have got to get its props at some point. I mean, right? Like, I'm not crazy.
It's
right?
impressive from a distribution perspective, you know?
It's huge from a distribution perspective. Especially a time when it's all about numbers and figures. Like, those were some real big numbers for the field in general.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's definitely cool to see how they took all of that and they were able to make Marvel what it is. But with all of that fun stuff, they took it, but they also didn't just make it these fantastical stories. They also grounded it down to us, to our level. I think that was the cool thing with Marvel is that, you know, you had DC where it was like Bruce Wayne was the mask, but then Batman was like the main guy. Well, Marvel went, no. In the case of like Spider-Man, Peter Parker is the important person. Spider-Man is the mask. And so they were able to use that to cover a whole lot of different social issues. You know, racism, bigotry, just a whole litany of different social issues that we see in the world today.
And some like structurally were affected by that, right? So like talking about like the X-Men, you know, the parallels between like Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X with Professor Xavier and Magneto.
Yep.
There are tiny little things like that that you can see where they drew their influences from, where the parallels can be made between. And then you have things like Days of Future Past, where you're actually like confronting something like bigotry in a comic book. It was really incredible for the time.
It still kind of is too.
And some of these people, like for example, like Falcon when he first came out, you know, they were basically redefining like epics for comics in some of these cases just by making a story.
Yep. And that was crazy to me as well. And it was actually a couple of days ago. If you guys haven't seen it on Disney Plus, there's a really good documentary. It's Marvel's Behind the Mask. I think it's like 45, 55 minutes, something in there. Really good documentary. But in there, the EVP of Marvel, John Quesada, asked Stan Lee what he thought was the impossible question. And he was like, Stan, what makes the perfect Marvel superhero? So at this point, he's like, you know, I got him. he's stumped. But notice what Stan said. I got to read it word for word because Stan's fantastic. He says, imagine Spider-Man on top of a building, taking it all in on the precipice of this building. Then he shoots a web, flies off the building, flies to the city. Cool scene, right? Tell me who he is. Tell me who he loves. Tell me who loves him. Tell me what his problems are. And now, when he flies off that same building, our hearts clutch because we're in that suit. Outside of that, it's just a red and blue suit.
So
like
right.
that, yeah, like that to me is like amazing because they make these heroes where they have problems, they have issues. You know, Spider-Man wasn't a billionaire. He didn't have a tech company at his disposal. I'm not taking shots at DC. I promise. I'm so sorry. I love it. But he didn't have all that. He was worried about how the bills were going to get paid. You know, he made sure he had a job. He was snapping photos with a bugle. Like, he went to college. He lived through high school. Like, he had so many of these things that were going on in his life, and he was worried about them. Even when he was in the mask, he's like, I gotta go back home, and I gotta work out my problems again.
You gotta get pictures of Spider-Man.
I gotta get pictures of Spider-Man. Pictures of Spider-Man.
It's really impressive how they were able to do that, and it's something that you don't really see any of those parallels with DC. I guess especially at the time, but it's just incredible, and I really appreciate what Stan has to say about all that.
That was
he really
so good.
trailblazed on all of that. Really,
he did. Him and Jack Kirby really did for some years. They really, create a whole universe that a lot of people have been able to contribute to, and that's what I thought was amazing. But taking all of that, you had to go somewhere. You've made all these comics, all this material. You had to go somewhere. Which brings us to the MCU. Now the MCU has had some highs. It's had, Avengers movies. It's had Spider-Man. It's had all these great movies. And then you have, 1990 Captain America with his rubber ears, or the Fantastic Four movie of 2015 that nobody wants to remember, especially not this guy. But no, you have the 2003 Daredevil movie. I don't want to talk about it. It brings me nightmares. But no, it's so much that Marvel has been able to do. Some for the good, some for the not so good. TV, movies, all of it. In fact, Dan Guillermo, I'm going to pronounce that correctly, of Digital Trends website, noticed that when he examined just the top 13 grossing movies of all time, Marvel took up 5 slots.
that's really impressive.
You want to know?
I do actually.
Would you guys like to know the 5 grossing movies? All right, so at number 5 we have Avengers: Age of Ultron.
Makes sense.
Number 4 we have the first Avengers movie. At number 3, sorry Justin, we have Spider-Man: No Way Home.
Fair. It's still made in the top 5.
At number 2, we have Avengers: Infinity War. Would you care to guess what made the number 1 spot?
Absolutely Endgame.
Endgame. Avengers: Endgame was the number 1 highest grossing Marvel movie.
I still feel excited about Endgame every single time I talk about it.
But you think about it, before Endgame, what we had Marvel-wise, there's the Punisher with Dolph Lundgren in the 90s, and then you
Forget about that one.
yeah, a lot of people would like to, including the people that made that movie. You go forward into the X-Men movies in the early 2000s, the progression has just been absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. Spider-Man 2002, there was not a whole lot of CGI in that movie. Just the practicality of it is crazy.
I think what's also is interesting is kind of like with some of the Batman movies before, you see them reimagining the series on the fly, So we've had 3 different kinds of Spider-Mans over time.
Yep.
And now we have this idea of what makes a good Spider-Man or a bad Spider-Man, something we carry into the theaters. It's incredibly unique.
It's crazy how unique it is, and I think about too just how their movies have just changed just tone-wise too. You think about the early 2000s, it was kind of serious, had some funny moments, but then you kind of get into Iron Man of 2008, and then it just all changes. It had this huge, kind of like the comics, this huge continuous story that just took us on until, was that 2019 was when the game dropped? So you think about over 10 years of just content.
Right.
I remember watching the first Iron Man movie and just mind-blowing that was.
I think I had an Iron Man game on my PSP. That was my first introduction to it.
Oh man, PSP.
Which I guess says it was 2008.
It's 2008, man. And then you go from 2008, then you have Hulk, then you have Thor, which was crazy to me because dude's talking pure Shakespearean thous and thises, I didn't understand what he was saying, but he looked cool understanding it.
Right.
You know, and he took that on, and you know, it was kind of a rough first movie, but you know, whatever. And then we just made it on to Avengers, and in Avengers we had this huge scale CGI fight with huge monsters and.
You know, where you literally have the entire ensemble of people, you know.
Yeah, like that spin shot, I think is going to be iconic.
It still
just
gets
shows
every time.
all of them, and then you fast forward to Endgame where it was like all the heroes and the
I distinctly remember. I mean, everyone has stories about stuff with Endgame, right?
Yeah,
like
of
seeing
course.
everyone on screen all at once, the sounds in the theater. But I was like, you know, a couple days after it came out, but me and my best friend went to go see it, and I distinctly remember like the hair standing up on my arms. You know,
Mhm.
it was wild. It was something I've never really had at the movies before.
I have never been to a movie where the theater rumbled, and when I saw No Way Home, when I tell you the theater shook, it shook.
It's amazing.
Maybe you guys remember your first time seeing a Marvel movie. If you do, let us know about it. We want to hear about it. If you can't do it on Facebook, come in and tell us about it. We want to hear it. But no, and to think that that's the impact on pop culture that it's had. Like that spin shot. You can't think of how many times that spin shot has been made fun of, or something in a show.
Like SNL actually.
Yeah, like
they
SNL
did
made
one
fun
on
of
that.
it. I mean, SNL. But no, that spin shot's iconic. All of these characters, everybody, their household names. I'm pretty sure my grandmother knows who Iron Man is at this point. Like, that's the impact that Marvel has had, not just in the field of comics, but just in media in general. Speaking of which, we're getting to the fun part.
We are.
We're gonna take this in parts. We're gonna start out with your top 5 favorite superheroes in the Marvel universe. You can include MCU, comics, whichever you want.
This has been a big point of discussion for us because every single time that we've talked about this, I've always changed my answers. And it's like a toss-up as to who I feel like I most closely relate to. I don't know why I go for that when I hear just favorite superheroes, but I really like Spider-Man as my number 1. That's the only one here that's distinctly ranked. Spider-Man's always going to be my favorite.
Yep.
I remember when I was in kindergarten, we would be like running around on the playground, and I was like pretending to swing from non-existent things in the sky. And little Justin didn't know how that worked either, but it was okay.
Doesn't Big Justin kind of get it?
Maybe a little bit. But yeah, Spider-Man is hard. Like honestly, the idea that someone could be faced with such cruelty, I think, and that's really how I would describe some of the things. You were talking about some of the real social issues and stuff that we deal with. You know, Spider-Man, most of the time, just existence is his struggle, literally,
really
or
is.
within society.
He wakes up in the morning and it's just like tough.
And then you also have some of like the most direct heroics. You know, some things that you can actually learn something from, and stands as like an example to other superheroes.
Yep.
So Spider-Man's my favorite. It's just not even close. But my other 4, I've got Daredevil, mostly talking about the season 3 of Daredevil. I adored that. That's the what was originally the Netflix series. But,
It's on Disney Plus now, so give that a check. We'll plug in Disney Plus.
I absolutely love Wolverine. I've always loved Wolverine.
First Canadian.
I really like Black Panther a lot. I think probably one of the most powerful entities in the whole Marvel universe. And then finally Star-Lord, because
Justin, would you like to explain to us why?
I feel like I remind myself. I think of myself as Star-Lord sometimes.
We can do words.
And I also feel strongly about Star-Lord because, in my opinion, if I lived in the MCU and we knew space was a thing, like I would not want to be on Earth anymore. Like I would vastly prefer space. But that's a topic for another time. But yeah, those are my 5. So Spider-Man, Daredevil, Wolverine, Black Panther, and Star-Lord. Those would be mine. But how about you, Nick? That's the real question.
Is that the real question? Let's see. So we're gonna go Peter Parker Spider-Man first. We're gonna go Miles Morales Spider-Man second. We're gonna go Black Panther coming in at number 3. Speaking of changes, number 4 is Captain America.
Okay. I guess we both changed
Number
ours.
4 is Captain America, and then 5 I gotta put Daredevil because of season 3 Daredevil. But no, I chose Peter Parker Spider-Man first because thinking back on it, I had to do some thinking. But I believe that was like the first Marvel thing I ever really watched.
I think a lot of people probably relate to that.
Yeah,
too,
like-
just from how old we are, you know.
I was about to say, old, man. But no, Spider-Man 2002 came out on this little thing called a VHS. Some of you may not know what that is. Google it. You have the ability. And you put it into VCR and you watch movies. It's really weird when you have to rewind it, but that's a whole other story. But no, like that was just, it was great. I watched that thing over and over again. I'm pretty sure I almost broke it. But like you said, Peter Parker was just, you know, really cool when I was a kid, and then I got older, and then he became relatable because, you know, he had work, and his, you know, things were difficult at work, and then he had to go to school and talk to girls, and he was awkward, and he dealt with his friends awkwardly, and I do that too. So there was just a lot of relatability between me and Peter Parker that I was like, man, I relate.
It really,
a lot.
it hits deep.
It hits real deep, man. Miles Morales Spider-Man, just because he's so cool. Like, his powers have just evolved over time, and it's amazing to see.
And it's exciting seeing, like, you know, another version of a character, you know, done extremely well to the point that they're almost like, they're important because of how similar they are, but also because of how different they are.
The differences are what make them awesome. Because, I mean, I have like 3 volumes of it at home, and it is, Brian Michael Bendis' writing is fantastic. That artwork is top notch to me. And I think his stories are just, they're a lot more ground level even than I think Peter Parker's are.
Right.
So that was what appealed to Miles Morales. Captain America was number 4 because, for those of you that don't know, I'm a slight John Cena fan.
Okay.
So, I mean, Captain America, John Cena, there's no real difference. Come on.
I think John Cena would maybe disagree.
No. He can't disagree. Like, if they had to bring, if like Chris Evans decided he didn't want to do it, I'm putting Cena's name.
That's fair. That's fair.
I'm putting that in there because I think it would be great. Black Panther was awesome just because, like, this man's debut alone was fantastic. He debuted in an issue of Fantastic Four and beat up individually all of the Fantastic Four, and then went, oh, I was just doing it to test myself.
Right.
Like, that was his whole thing. He's like, oh, I just wanted to test myself, see where I'm at.
And like all of the Fantastic Four getting beaten, that didn't really happen much.
Nope.
Like I don't want to say something like too broad on that because someone could probably point out like, well, not in this issue.
Yeah, we're gonna have a lot of people in the comments. Like, actually, if you look at this issue, but no, like, if you think about it though, 2 issues before he shows up, they had just beat Galactus. So you go from beating Galactus to one dude beating you in a matter of minutes. And what was cool about it is, like, nobody knew who he was because he was rocking a mask the whole time, and then he takes it off, and they're like, they don't go, oh wait, it was, you know, this guy. No, he was a king. And then he went to Wakanda, and Wakanda is this like technological marvel of a place, and like before it is a pun. I never seen anything like that with regards to just seeing this whole culture of you know, different ethnicities and whatnot being shown in that sort of a light. And the fact that he was a king and he was regal, and in some instances, like Christopher Priest, he pulled up in a limousine with an all-black suit on, just like dressed to the nines. Come on now, how could you not? Absolutely. How could you not? And then yeah, Daredevil comes in just because. I mean, season 3 Daredevil was fantastic.
We probably spent like 3 months at work just like checking in with each other on it and seeing
what episode
of Daredevil season 3.
Oh man, it gets better. We did that for about 3 months. We did that back and forth, so it was great. So we've covered heroes. Now we're getting to the meat of the matter. What are your top 5 Marvel movies?
You should go first with the movies.
Should I go
I'll
first
go
with the
after
movies?
you. Yeah.
Okay,
We have to keep it fair.
Really gonna put me on the spot here. We're gonna go Black Panther. We're gonna go Spider-Man 2. We're going to go Captain America: Winter Soldier. Then we're going to go Amazing Spider-Man. And then for our final come in, we're going to go. Oof, this is a tough one. This is like, it's not the one I hate, but it's the least one. Oof, this is tough. You know what? We're gonna go Far From Home. We're gonna go Far From Home. We're gonna do it.
It's a pretty solid list.
It's a pretty solid list, and I like it a lot. Like I said, the other 2 Spider-Man's got to be up there. Black Panthers, Killmonger.
It's
Dude
just
had his own
classic.
soundtrack when he entered the room. He had
Right.
come on now, fantastic. But no, I think all those movies are just top tier to me. I think they have their own different ways, and they definitely have their flaws. But I think they're all good and they're all special.
Absolutely.
So I was on the chopping block. It's your turn, sir.
I think my number one has to be right off the top, Spider-Man: No Way Home. Just for what it was able. And I don't want to talk about spoilers too much, because in case someone hasn't seen it, but
like in case you guys haven't seen it, we're not gonna say a whole
the
lot.
way that they're able to blend what I know as my childhood to be Spider-Man, that's like my only hint, right?
Did you have the singles here or whatever?
It was just incredible. And talking about everything that makes Spider-Man who he is, they really, it's just like they went from the standard MCU kind of tone that they have to, by the end of that movie, it's like you're really invested in this young man and how he's choosing to be a hero and to try to do the right thing. I don't know. That one is just always going to be, I think, my favorite. Number 2 is going to be Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. I know that's controversial because a lot of people like the second one better, but I really like the tone of the first one too. I mean, it's the MCU in space, and you have Chris Pratt, you have Rocket Raccoon. From a character perspective, it's just so rich, it's so fun. So that's why I like that one. That's my number 2. Captain America: Winter Soldier. That one was just classic because you took Captain America outside of the Avengers and took him into the modern day, and you're touching on like very real social issues to do with surveillance and control, and how, again, another hero that really is idyllic and stands for very strong values, kind of crashes up against all of that.
I was about to say, and I think with Winter Soldier, what was interesting too is I think that's Marvel's like most action-packed movie, just from start to finish. It's fantastic.
Sebastian Stan with the knives.
Sebastian
It was so cool. Number 4 would have to be Avengers Endgame, and that is almost exclusively because of just the amount of fan service and the things that they tied up in that movie. Like I said, it's the only movie that I can like distinctly remember the entire experience of what it was like in that theater. And I mean, I felt bad for my friend I saw it with because I kept trying to like explain stuff as it was happening because I'm that guy. It's really unfortunate. But then, you know, when certain things happened in that movie, I was like, my friend's name is Justin. I was like, Justin, they're doing it. And it was just amazing. So that one gets that one alone. And then the last one I've got as well is Captain America Civil War. Or did you mention Civil War?
I haven't mentioned
Yeah,
Civil War.
so Civil
You
War.
gotta explain that one.
Civil War is number 5, and I guess you have the introduction of Black Panther. You have introduction of Spider-Man. You have Tony Stark and Steve Rogers throwing down.
An iconic scene with holding the shield
And they replicate the cover of
the
Civil
cover
War.
of Civil War.
There was just all these little things about that one, and I guess all of these probably have their own issues, right? You mentioned that with yours, but these are all the ones that have something really special to me with it. I really like the heroics of it, like the virtues and everything, and I think all of these have like some pretty cool ones.
They're all so good, man. And to think that Marvel, like I still kind of feel that way. I know that's a hot topic to be, but like Marvel really kind of outdid themselves from Iron Man to Endgame, because you had, like I said, like 10+ years of just content that was continuous and all branched off into one another, and then it, you know, climaxes in just this huge just thing, and it's like, how do you top that? How does one top what they've done? But I think Marvel is trying their best. I think they've been doing a lot after that, and there's a lot of future stuff to like look forward to. Like, there's a ton of future projects that they got coming out. Is there any that you are looking at?
I've been a little like disappointed with the MCU as far as like TV shows go as of late.
Really?
I haven't been keeping up with them as well as I should. I've been tapering back, and I've spoken with a lot of people who have those similar feelings after Endgame, right? So for me, the main things I'm excited for, the newest season of Daredevil. However they choose to implement the X-Men, it's going to blow my mind. I don't know when it will happen, but I would adore it, and that is going to be forever what I'm waiting for. Whoever will replace Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. But speaking of that, another one I'm looking forward to is Deadpool 3. You have Hugh Jackman returning after he said he wasn't going to return.
Only Ryan Reynolds could have done that, honestly.
So those are the ones that I'm looking forward to. Really just expanding on the stuff that I've already liked before. You know, of course I'm gonna love the next Spider-Man movie, but I really like them introducing some of these characters that we know about but we haven't yet seen, or at least not in this generation of movie. I think it's gonna be excellent. And talking about, you know, societal issues and how they plug into some of these, can you imagine what they're gonna do with X-Men when they properly introduce them? I can see them absolutely leaning into like the way the world is, and I just would really like to see it. I think it'd be an experience.
It's gonna be awesome. I think for me, first off, Across the Spider-Verse
I forgot all
comes
about
out.
that.
How did you forget about that?
I'm ashamed of myself.
You should be. You're shutting for a brief second because we got to do the show together. But no, Into the Spider-Verse was fantastic. Across the Spider-Verse already looks like it's going to be just phenomenal. So we're going to see that opening day. Definitely looking forward to X-Men '97, the cartoon that they got coming out. Did you not know
I
about
didn't know
this?
that.
Yeah, they've got X-Men '97. They've already showed some like stills and stuff from it. It's got that like classic X-Men show.
Does it have the
vibe.
soundtrack?
I don't know yet. They haven't said if it's gonna have the soundtrack or not yet. But
It's
I'm
like
looking forward to that.
Deleted memory in my head. It's all the tunes from the cartoons like back then.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Looking forward to that. They also have another Spider-Man cartoon coming out at some point. I don't know. I've heard the dude that plays Moff Gideon may be in it in some shape or I don't know. It's all rumor. But I'm kind of excited. I've always wanted him in the MCU in some shape or form. Some people want him to be Professor X. Some people want to Norman Osborn ain't a bad thing.
At this rate, it's kind of like, which actor hasn't been in the MCU already that we can plug in now?
Henry Cavill.
Fair.
The way I see it, he ain't playing Superman, so he's got an open little schedule there for an MCU movie.
Right.
And then I think finally, yeah, Born Again is going to be interesting to see, like, live action. I feel like season 3 Daredevil is kind of like a taste of that, but
I really felt like season 3 of Daredevil was a little bit more of like trying to be Born Again, which is Daredevil Born Again is this like really, I guess you'd kind of call it this like very grand like journey for Daredevil. You know, he falls, he gets back up, the classic arc. But it's really cool getting to see Daredevil interact with that, and I feel like they took some of the cues, kind of like the church, him recovering in the church. They did that in season 3 of Daredevil. So I'm really excited to see the things that they're going to change, because that's one of my favorite comics of all time. If they can find a way to make it better, I'm here for it.
if you haven't read it, feel free to read it on Hoopla, which if you have a library card with us, you can access it. But we also have it here in-house now as well. We just had that freshly ordered. So come down and be the first one to check it out, and that goes for you guys too. If you're interested, come check it out. But no, I really liked, like you were saying about Born Again, it's just that hole it's in. Because I mean, out of all of us, who hasn't been in a hole? I don't want to see people. I don't want to talk to people. Leave me alone. Everything's terrible, and we're there for like months, and you have to work your way out. And so Matt has to do that, of working his way out of that. And I always thought that was an interesting story. And then the throw in all the stuff happening around him too that he has to deal with while he's in this hole was crazy to see as well. So I just think overall, I think if you guys could walk away with anything from this, it's just that Marvel has its ups, Marvel has its downs. But at the end of the day, I think what they do is they just provide us with a source of entertainment. Like, they provide us with stories that we think about every so often, or at least we do when we get paid for it. It's awesome. They also give us characters that, like I said, are household names. Like, I can go out on the street and just wear a Captain America shirt, and somebody will know what it represents.
Exactly.
You know
Just
what I
the
mean?
shape of it.
Just the shape of it, they'll know what it means. And I think for it to have that much of an impact on pop culture, on us as people, it's just shows the power of media.
Absolutely. I think the MCU is definitely here to stay. I know I said that I was a little more disappointed with some of the more recent TV shows, but I imagine they'll probably dial it in. It's just like all of the MCU comics in general, these are things I really enjoy because I love characters. I love these characters they build, and I love how they get to show what it means to be like a hero and try to make a difference. As tacky as that makes me sound, like these,
Honestly,
the glimpse that you get into what it means to be a hero is really, really cool. So
he is. And, heroes can be whoever. We can be heroes. We all are the Flash. There you have it. No. But no, we're really happy that you guys came out. We're really happy that you guys tuned in. Now, fun part. We're gonna do a little Q&A. Yeah, we got time. A lot of time. So we can do a little Q&A. If you all have questions or anything that you guys want to talk about, feel free. Yes, ma'am.
All right. Who would you like to see replace Hugh Jackman as Wolverine?
Danny DeVito. I wanted to say that for the longest time, and you queued me up for it.
Now hold on. Just Danny DeVito or Danny DeVito on stilts?
See, that's the thing. In the comics,
No, this is a
in the
legit question.
comics, Wolverine's 5'4".
He is.
All right, and it was just something they grossly misrepresented with the original movies with Hugh Jackman, right?
Who was 6'1".
And they just kind of ran with it. And I think it was because everyone was like, "Ooh, buff Hugh Jackman," like we'll let it slide. But in reality, like Wolverine's a little guy, and he's got adamantium bones, and he's like. Anyways, my joke has always been that I'd really love to see Danny DeVito as Wolverine because from a size perspective, they would be right on the money. To be perfectly honest, I think I could go as far as to say this. If they seriously went up to Danny DeVito and he took it seriously, I bet it would be incredible.
So anyway, I started slicing. so I just come out slicing. I have these claws.
Can I offer you some claws in these
Can I-
trying times?
Can I offer you this Wolverine claw in these trying times? Yes, sir.
Obviously, I think Phase 4 has been kind of a kind of situation. What do you think they can do to maybe mitigate that or try to?
More Black Panther. No, I'm kidding. Honestly, I think their biggest problem is I feel like they're rushing it. That's the vibe I get. Because, I mean, you got deadline. Yeah, they're just popping them out factory-wise. I feel like if they went back to what it was, it just, okay, we got all this. Let's see how we can condense it to make it work and make it into a film that people are going to love or make it into a show that people are going to relate with. I feel like that'd be a lot better.
You know, these franchises are really big, expensive things. And after Endgame and all of that, right, that pressure just gets that much higher. And then you've got all these different writers having to kind of meet the same kind of universe and those expectations. I've read a lot about how, like, the CGI teams, there have been a lot of issues with spreading the workload with that. So I really think it's just going to be a matter of them dialing in their desired effect, right? Because right now, if you look at, particularly with a lot of the more recent TV shows, you're not seeing stuff that is like leading up to the next Thanos, right? You're seeing a lot of the more low-key, definitely getting to explore the characters. Maybe the stakes aren't quite as high.
Not as high as they were.
I think that if they dialed that in and maybe got Kang the Conqueror, like they've been hinting at.
Fleshed him out a little more.
Yes, if they start having like the big baddie that all this other stuff kind of revolves around, I think it would, one, give it a little bit more momentum, but also I feel like it would kind of build up what they all are. Because right now I think some of these, that might be why, I think for me, why Phase 4 has been a little bit disappointing is it doesn't necessarily feel like it's always going somewhere. You know, with Loki, watching that show, I was like, okay, now we're cooking with gas.
Now we're cooking, you know.
But now, you know, with some of them like, you know, maybe She-Hulk and I love Moon Knight, right? But its connection to the whole
I was
universe
about to
itself.
say, it's had so many, it's done this.
Yeah.
Like it has them, like Moon Knight was fantastic. I thought it was a good show. Werewolf by Night was surprising. Like
I haven't even seen it. I didn't know it was out yet.
it gave you that old Universal monster movie vibe, and the fact that the whole movie is black and white really sells it. I like the fact that, you know, how some movies, when Marvel does the opening crawl, they try to make it special in some shape or form. No, they completely just made it their own little thing, and I thought that was awesome. But no, I feel like, this has been my hot take, I feel like Civil War should have been the lead up at first instead of going to Endgame. Because you think about it, it gives you more room to introduce more heroes. You could have made Civil War a lot bigger of an event. And then after we get Civil War out of the way, then the threat from space comes in.
I think that like
Of Thanos.
that scaling issue is always going to be an issue, right?
Mhm.
We can start small, but at some point there's always got to be a bigger
There's
fish.
always got to be a bigger fish.
So I think that's what I would say. I think that would help improve Phase 4 is get a bigger baddie in like King the Conqueror, start leaning on him more, and maybe have it all start converging a little bit more. I think that was the energy I really appreciated about the MCU leading up to Endgame, and I think if they did that again, it might reinvigorate it some. But I also
Strike Price.
maybe so. And game 2.
In game 2.0. We never left. Anybody? Oh. Again, madam.
So, how do you think the Marvel Universe and Marvel Corporation in general, as an entertainment enterprise, deals with social issues compared to their takeoff in the 60s?
Ooh, that's a good one.
That's a really good question.
That's a really good one. I think in the 60s, there were a lot of social issues at the time. I'm just thinking about the time that Black Panther came out was during all of the kind of like racial riots and stuff of that time period. So a lot of the creators that worked on Black Panther had mentioned how having a character like that who was a king, who was in a prominent position, really helped and kind of show people that like, hey, that's the world I want to be in. I want to be in the world where, you know, I'm rolling up in limousines like this guy, you know, instead of the reality that was sadly waiting for them outside. And then it also touched on a lot of things like drug abuse and like alcoholism that hadn't really like touched on a whole
What a
bunch.
good point. Yeah, so like in the comics, Tony Stark's an alcoholic, like a crippling alcoholic. He really, really struggles, and they'll have covers that show him just at his worst. You know,
I think he went to like rehab and all that, and he like it was a whole arc that they did about him going through this, and it was wild because it was like, I don't know, seeing it in print and seeing it kind of play out was just kind of like eye-opening. Man, this is like some of us can have relatives that deal with that, and to kind of see it through their perspective through Tony Stark was like, whoa, huge, like a real big thing. And then X-Men comes out, and you've got all these people who have these abilities that they can't help. They're literally born with it. They can't turn it off. But then society judges them for who they are. They're literally just being themselves. And I think you fast forward to now, that's still a lot of stuff that's going on. You know, people born of different races, cultures, and backgrounds, and they're judged for it. They can't help how they were born, you know, what they came from. So I think Marvel has been doing a lot of that. Sadly, I think too, during nowadays you have your bumps where I think they kind of do it just as a, oh, this will sell if we do this, and a lot of times it's not actually genuine. But when it's genuine, I think it's powerful.
I think it would be really interesting to, you know, talking about like in the 60s with Stan Lee, Falcon, Black Panther, a lot of those, you know, big jumps that the field made. I would love to get the perspective of like the average reader there with these movies and talking about what they do with regards to social issues with it. They're on the big screen, you know. What you were talking about, how these things are ultimately here to make money, right? So it's ultimately like that's a different kind of game than that had to have been in the 60s. And I really would have loved to just see how that felt, you know, with Stan Lee talking on, he had this little section called a soapbox where he would just kind of talk about stuff, and it was really cool. Getting to like interpret his tenderness and the things he was trying to break down back then, I would honestly probably guess that it probably would feel bigger than some of the gambles that they've made recently, just because, I mean, he was literally redefining that form of media, and those things were so active and on the forefront. So yeah, I think they did a great job with it, you know, back then, and I think they still are. I think it's going to be interesting to see, you know, now that we've had these first few waves of movies, if they're ever going to, you know, specifically really tackle social justice hard in a newer movie, you know, or they might choose not to. Who knows?
I think back to 2018 when Black Panther came out, and when I tell you that was a cultural phenomenon, I'm telling you, you had people showing up in dashikis and different African garb, and there were people that were getting huge groups of their friends to go see. Like every media outlet was talking about it, and you couldn't watch like Entertainment Tonight without them talking about the impact of this movie. So I feel like Marvel has the ability to do it, and I think they can do it. It's just how they go about it and the way they do it, and if it's a way that really, like we said in the 60s, really grabbed them, if it's a way that grabs us now, I think they're doing right. Keep it going. Let's go. Come on. You hit us with some good ones. Let's keep this going.
So from the perspective of the original creator in 1939, how do you think he would feel about what it's become today?
I think because again, it's a business, and business is numbers and figures. I think if he sat back and they showed him, okay, here's our books, and here's what we're doing in this area, and this, I think he would be very, very much happy. Especially too, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of the comic book companies that started back there in those days started by a lot of Jewish immigrants that were living in like New York at the time, and so they created these comics, created these stories because again, what they were living in the real world was rough. You know, they wanted to be considered all American people, but they weren't for obvious reasons. So I think for him to see what he started with to what it became, I think he would be profoundly happy with that because it started from the dream of this kid who just wanted to be accepted and just wanted to be valued. That now he was able to spark the fire that grew into this huge corporation that we have today, and I think he'd be very happy about it.
I mean, I think one of the more shocking things too would be like, you know, how kind of like the circle was so much small for those initial comic books, right? A lot of people had opinions about like what kinds of people and who read comic books, right? And then fast forward to now where like from a merchandising perspective, you can go into Walmart and find 3 different shirts with the superheroes logo on it. It's probably like official Marvel, you know. I imagine from that perspective too, that it would probably be just completely unapproachable, you know, completely foreign. Like someone took these little comics I made and now it's like a, you know, they have whole websites full of stuff. Like, why do I want to put it on a mug? Like, that would be the kind of things I would imagine would be asked. That would be very profound, I think.
So, yes, sir.
How would you guys feel about them doing another Howard the Duck?
I'm here for it.
No hesitation. I was about to say, you didn't even hesitate. You're like, no, give me
That's technically the
Howard
first Marvel film.
It was technically the first one. You're right about that. Howard the Duck, oh boy. It wouldn't be appropriate for children. Just put that out there right now. It would not be a film you take a child to.
That is not the original one.
They could change it.
I was about to say, but they could change it. You know, PG-13 is the realm they usually try to play in. So, I mean, I think they would make it work within that realm of things.
My dream is that they like let this stuff go for a little while longer, and then they're like, "All right, guys, we've tried everything. Let's get weird with it." And then that's when all the like really cool, unique stuff starts coming out. You know,
like Spider-Ham. And
yeah,
all
like
that.
we're just like, let's just try this and see if it works. I would really appreciate. Yeah, Danny
DeVito plays Howard the Duck.
Not here first. I would really enjoy that.
So anyway, I started quacking. Nah,
Keep going.
we can keep going. That's great. But no, I don't know if the world will be ready. I don't think the world will be prepared for that level of intrigue that Howard provides for us all. These are good. Come on, keep them coming. I know somebody's got a question somewhere. Madam.
Top 3 MCU villains.
All right, guys, this has been a good show. We're gonna thank you all for coming. Oh boy. Do you want to go?
I can go first.
Yeah, you go, because I got to think about
I
this
know my
one.
number 1. I'm gonna have to think about the other 2 as I talk about the number 1. My number 1 is the Purple Man, commonly a villain for Jessica Jones. I believe was originally a villain for Daredevil.
Yes,
I think.
originally Daredevil.
But the Purple Man, the way he works, 1, he's evil, but 2nd, he has, I believe it's like pheromones or something.
Mhm.
Basically, he's like constantly releasing them. You can't see them. But the effect they have is if he tells you to do something, you do it, almost unconsciously. And you can probably think about the implications of that, and they absolutely do take it to those dark places. And I really think from a villainy perspective, it's like one of the most atrociously vicious, villainous things I think I could ever imagine. And so that's why I like the Purple Man the best, is you just have, I believe, a villain that like truly scares me, you know, to have such a simple but massive, you know, power to use like that. Oh my gosh, I don't know about the other ones though.
You do this. Question: are we talking comics, or are we talking MCU, or both?
Both.
Both.
Okay, number 2, let's go with Venom. Like 90s Venom. was a
Oh, 90s
goofball.
Venom?
Okay,
Yes, he was.
he was like so goofy. He wasn't super serious. He didn't look like Tom Hardy did with the suit on. It
Not
was
at
like
all.
long, tiny teeth, but he looked like he was grinning and he would say some goofy stuff. That would probably be number 2 for me.
Yeah, that was from Protector. That was his
And
whole thing.
I think for number 3, I'd have to go with Green Goblin. Just because Green Goblin has done awful, horrible things to him. See, it's weird because you say like what my favorite villain is, and I'm like, yeah, they're my favorite. It's because they're really, really bad. And then I feel weird because it's like I'm ranking and valuing the worse they are. Those are the ones that I was about to say appreciate the most. Those are my favorite
You
villains.
can appreciate them. You can appreciate good villains.
It's your turn now.
It's my turn. I am the captain now. I gotta go Venom number 1. And we're not talking 90s goofball villain. Give me like Donny Cates' current dark Venom.
Okay. I can
That's
work
the
with
type
that.
of Venom. Because this Venom. No, we don't talk about Topher Grace's Venom. Ugh, I don't want to talk about it.
It's got from that same show.
That is the guy from that 70s show. Good job, man. You did great. But no, Venom from the Donny Cates run in the comics was crazy because he's a dad at this point.
Right.
So he's got a kid, and he is trying to basically piece himself together because for so long him and Venom have been this one thing that he's on this journey to figure out who he is outside of Venom. Meanwhile, Venom is like, why are we changing? We're perfectly fine. And he's like, I got a kid. I got to be somewhat of a dad. I mean, my dad was trash. I got to do something with this kid. And so he's trying to work all that out while also working with these big scale problems like the King in Black.
Right.
With all that going on and
man.
stuff. So that's what I like. That's the Venom I vibe with. Number 2, we're going to go Kingpin.
Okay. That's actually really good. I should have.
Yeah, we're going TV series Kingpin and comics Kingpin because Kingpin is just, first of all, he's a bigger set guy, so he gives me hope that I can be awesome. As a heavier set guy. But also too, he's so scary evil, and it's not because of like a power, like ability. He's just intimidating. I don't know how to like quantify it. He's just massive a man. You don't want to disappoint him or get on his bad side because he has absolutely no problem with taking care of you for a long time. I don't know how to verb it.
If you've ever played Dungeons and Dragons, there's alignments, right? And they have like lawful evil. What is it? Neutral evil. And
Lawful, neutral, and chaotic evil.
Right. And Kingpin's a great example of lawful evil because he's, a businessman. He owns all kinds of stuff, has a legitimate empire. And then underneath all of that, in super sneaky ways, most of the time in technically legal ways, will just like ruin your life if you stand against it. And I think probably what's cool about that is, the implications of how there are probably people just like that in the world right now.
Yeah, man. Because I think about, we keep talking about this show, it's really good storytelling. Daredevil season 2, when him and Matt are sitting across from each other in the prison, and Matt's like, I've got this on you, and I got that, and we got this trade over here. You're going to wait for a long time. And he goes, that's funny. Because I've got this, I've got that, and I've got people watching your people every second. So you step out of line.
It's like a tenacious kind of
It really is, like, because, Matt's feeling himself. He's like, yeah, we got him dead to rights. And he's like, I've been like 2 moves ahead of you this entire time. So get on my level. And then season 3, that final episode, when he's just like, he's been getting Daredevil all mad. And, Daredevil takes it out on him. And he's like, go ahead, do what you came here to do. And he's like, no, I want you to know who beat you. And then leaves.
It's
Like,
such a good show.
That's
the
chills.
moral it is.
And then, okay, so that's number 2. Number 3 spot. I'm giving you Killmonger.
I knew you would say that. I was waiting for it. I knew it would be there.
Okay. Dude had his own entrance music, okay? They slowed down a portion of the movie to juxtaposition the camera to show just like, that dude is a gangster, man.
It's
Like,
an
come on.
entrance.
And then he had like the open jacket, and he was just rocking, like, come on.
I always liked his Black Panther suit better.
Mhm.
I know a lot of people don't.
He just had the roar, and like you could kind of see
Yeah,
their
it had like
teeth.
gold on it and stuff. It was pretty cool.
So good. But I think also too was his background. Like he didn't know what his dad was doing, and then he lost his dad, and so now he was working his way to like, I want to go see what my dad talked about, and I want to regain his position. And then once he got it, he was like, okay, where have you guys been when all this social injustice has been going on in the world for our people? Like, you guys have been taking care of your borders, you've been taking care of your people, why haven't you been helping the people out here that have been oppressed? And so once he became empowered, he was like, we're going to take all this and we're going to go out there and fix all those problems, just like we fixed it internally. You know, and how can you be mad at him? Like, he's got a point. Like, Wakanda's been around for so long, so they've known about the issues in the world, but they've done nothing. And so Killmonger's like, no, we ain't doing that no more. And just flips the script on everything.
That's a good way of showing, like, we've talked about some of the complexity that's in some of these stories. That alone, I think, was probably one of the more complex situations in the MCU. You know, talking about a villain who it's like, they kind of have a point.
They kind of have a point. I think another thing that made him so good too, and I think this goes for any villain in any form of media, you can challenge your hero to question what they're doing, you got him. Joker, he's constantly making Batman question what he's doing as a hero. But Killmonger came in and was like, hey, my dad died because your dad killed him. And he's like, no, that can't be it. And then he goes and talks to his dad, and his dad's like, so here's the thing. Might have killed him, but I did it in the name of Wakanda. And he's like, that's not okay. And so then Black Panther has to think about who he wants to be as a king, as a leader, and as a warrior going forward. And all of that would not have happened if Killmonger had come along and basically made him question who he was going to be.
Right.
And just a little note, a friend of mine said it, and I don't like it because I can't stop thinking about it. Black Panther was just live action Lion King, for being honest. Tell me I'm wrong.
We've already had this conversation.
Say it louder for the people in the back.
Black Panther is just live action Lion King. Come on, people, watch it. You're not gonna like it because I didn't like it, but if you watch it, there's similarities. But no, those are my top 3 baddies in Marvel.
That was a good question.
That was a
We really went on that.
We did. We went on a
It's
tangent on
important.
that
It's
one.
important.
It is
It's
very
important.
much important. Anybody else got some question on it? Yes, sir. You went back.
Do you think Bruce Banner will return as Captain America, or will the Falcon back keep being Superman?
I think Falcon's going to be his going forward.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I don't think. I mean, as cool as it would be for them to bring back Chris Evans. Also, he said Bruce Banner instead of Steve Rogers. I just don't want that to go on. I'll be honest. But no, I think Falcon's doing a decent job. We're about to give him a movie. So.
Absolutely, and I think, and I guess this is getting more into Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but like showing, not just who has the shield, but who is at their heart the better hero, is the coolest part of that, and I think he's gonna nail it. That's the stuff that makes me grin really big because those have always been my favorite parts.
Part of me's kind of hurt though. I don't want Bucky.
I still
Just because Bucky was like, I feel like Bucky would be like a suave cap, you know what I'm saying? I kind of rocking with the jacket.
All that matters is the quality of the hero when it comes to Captain America. Steve Rogers was amazing. I think Falcon takes the cake there.
Falcon's gonna take the cake. That's good question. Sir. Good question. Anybody else? Come on now, keep it rolling. Yes, sir.
What are some of your favorite Marvel video games, but you can't pick the recent Spider-Man or Miles or the recent Avengers?
So basically, you don't want me to answer this question. Man, favorite Marvel video games outside of the 2 new Spider-Man games and the Avengers game.
I've already got mine in mind.
All right, you go ahead. I'm gonna have to think about it.
Spider-Man 2 for the PlayStation 2.
Oh,
It's like realistic swinging effects and a free roam like New York, and you get to be Spider-Man. And little Justin, I think, like suspended disbelief to like fill in the gaps where there were technical difficulties with the game. But it was like the closest taste I could get to actually like roaming around and like being Spider-Man. And so how it like ignited that like creativity for it, easily the best one. And I think from like a technical perspective, right, probably not the best video game, but what it was to little Justin, I distinctly remember I got it over the summer. It was between like semesters for school, and my brother was playing it a lot, and we were like fighting over who would get to play it. And I distinctly remember, I think I ejected the disc on his PS2 while it was saving.
No.
And it corrupted his whole entire game file that he had poured like hours into.
Little Justin was
I was
menace.
not a good person. But there's very much not Spider-Man type energy. But it was a great game, and that's the one I think of, partly for that story too.
You wrecked his entire set.
I got my little pieces in that one.
And I'm live saying this.
I
Sorry,
know.
Nicholas.
I'm so sorry,
I think I
Nicholas.
remember saying I didn't mean to, but like low key, I kind of.
We know you meant
You
to.
know,
We
it's
all
like,
know.
what do you think's gonna happen if you open the disc tray, Justin? While it's playing, what do you think?
What happened to the Bluetooth button? I'm trying to think. I think I'd have to say, man, this is a tough one. Ooh, that is a good one. That is a good one. But I was also thinking Marvel v. Capcom.
Okay, well done.
Because you think about it,
Irreplaceable.
you just team up and you get the right team and you can do some real damage, like real damage.
I think that might have been one of the first like crossover video games with like Marvel that I've ever seen too.
Ultimate Alliance, that was good. Well, wait, which Ultimate Alliance we're talking about? Ultimate Alliance 1 or Ultimate Alliance 2?
I think it won.
You're thinking 1? Okay, 2 was okay. But no, those are the two that I have to think of off the bat that were just like amazing to me. I know they had a lot of hit and misses game-wise.
There've been a lot
But
of
if we
hit and
included it,
misses.
I totally would say the two new Spider-Man games are fantastic.
Had many difficult.
Oh, and Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. Which we
Yes,
have not
actually,
played.
because we
He
didn't-
didn't put that on the list.
That one
so,
is
Marvel's
incredible. I
Guardians
could
is
talk
great.
about that one for another hour.
You Star Wars fan, you. All right, see, this is good. I'm glad you guys are vibing with it. Anybody more questions? No, thank you. Madam?
Who would be your go-to character for cosplay if you decide to cosplay?
So
I'm
who
gonna
would
ask
be
myself
my as little Justin asked himself.
Not little Justin. When I was little, I don't think we were using cosplay. It was just like, do I want to be Spider-Man for Halloween? You know?
That's a form of cosplay.
I was the
It's
Red
like-
Power Ranger many a time.
Red Power Ranger. Wait, OG Mighty
We'll have to
Morphin?
we'll have to do a Power Ranger.
Yeah, we'll have to do a
podcast.
Power Ranger one. That's another one. Which go-to hero would I cosplay as?
Or villain?
Or villain. Okay, so we can do hero.
Character.
Ooh, what if we do both?
Okay, I'm good for that.
So if I had to go hero, of course I would have to work out many hours to do it. But I think I would have to go Luke Cage.
Okay, that's a good choice.
If I'm gonna go for hero, I'm gonna go Luke Cage, just because his is so simplistic, but
Some cool
also
things you could do
is
with, like, the holes
Yeah,
in
I was
the
about to say
ring.
you could do like the bullet holes on his shirt to like show that he's indestructible. I think that's cool. And then if I had to go villain, again, a lot of time in the gym. I'm going somewhere. Or the best thing that came out of 2003 Daredevil was Michael Clark Duncan's Cleveland.
Fair.
Because he had the three-piece suit, and he had like the purple flower on it, or the purple lapel, you know, one. Top notch.
I would absolutely be Star-Lord. We've talked about this before.
I thought you were gonna say Star-Lord or Wolverine, because you could like
Yeah,
shave the.
I have already been Wolverine a couple times. I'll tape plastic knives to my fingers and just not shave for like a week and like wear a white undershirt, and it's like instant Wolverine. And then you can just walk up to people and like, because it's plastic knives, and it's just.
Aren't you too tall to be true to the
You know,
comic
you're
book
exactly
Wolverine?
right. Danny DeVito has that on me. He could call me a fraud.
You're a fraud.
I would want to be Star-Lord. Star-Lord, I've thought just a ridiculous amount about this. It's like the jacket. Like the jacket, and I wouldn't do the long jacket. I would do the shorter jacket. But I've got like the beard and stuff and the fluffy hair. But I don't know what I'd be. I don't like the idea of dressing up as a villain. It sounds so lame to say on live.
Well,
but
you've already been Wolverine. I don't see why you can't be Sabretooth. Just do a little dive.
Ooh, but Sabretooth is a jerk. He is not a cool guy.
You pushed the button on your brother's game.
That's
you
true.
cannot say that you don't
This
have
is my
side
villain arc,
characters.
actually. This is the creation. I'll go with just because I think it would be funny. I think I'd like to cosplay as Thanos. It'd be cool to like be purple and like
I'm just gonna put a ball.
like his chin. Like I don't know how I'd do that with my beard, but I find a way. Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. And like the way he talks, I think it'd be really fun to like go around like talking. I didn't even do it very well there, but like talking really deep, obviously with some better planning than I just did. But it would be fun. So yeah, that's what I'd do.
Yeah, I'm just imagining you like growing your beard out and then you just doing the little like lines.
That's a
for his
technique,
chin,
yeah.
because you know, or well, actually, you'd have to do it from here down.
Or you should just make a prosthetic chin.
That's true. That would make a lot of sense.
A lot of chin buddy.
Yeah.
A lot of chin buddy.
I'd also get the gauntlet. Infinity gauntlet.
Big
That would be
foam
pretty
one
cool.
like it came from.
I was
Oh,
about to
yeah.
say huge foam one, or would you do? There was like a homemade cosplay that somebody did where they just took like the ring pops and put it on one of those like yellow dishwash.
That's like the same energy as my Wolverine. So yeah, that's clearly. Are you sure that wasn't me?
I mean, he did kind of look like.
Right.
Just was like these
These
are
are Russian off-brand Avengers film.
Oh yes, the Avengers we had at home.
I was just about to say, can you order Avengers? We got Avengers at home. Avengers at home. But no, that was a good one. I had to think about that one for a second. So I think this is the time when we're kind of gonna wrap it up. But I am so happy that Mr. Justin was able to come join me, my co-host, the co-pilot for the show today. And I'm really happy that you guys were able to attend. We didn't know, and you at home, you're important as well. Don't think you're not. You are important. I'm really glad we got to do this. This was the first show. I was uber nervous. So many times he was trying to throw the positive vibes, but it didn't pan out because I'm not the biggest optimist. But it turned out really good. I'm really glad that you guys made it. I want to thank Justin again, not just for the co-host, but he has been a top fighter for Hot Reads, even when we were doing it on YouTube. So I'm going to give him his props out here. I'm also going to thank Leah Whitworth, who is behind the camera. She was the one that also helped fight for the show and get the cookies and the hot chocolate and all that stuff. So thank you both. Thank all of you guys, and thank you at home for making this what it is. And we will see you when we see you.